You know that feeling? The one right before the beat drops? The whole world holds its breath for a split second. The air gets thick, electric, and you can feel the reverb building up from the floor through the soles of your platform boots and straight into your chest. That's where I live, in that moment. My name's Crystal, I'm 19, and that moment is the only thing that's real to me. My parents think this is a phase. They see the glitter in my hair and the dark circles under my eyes, and they do this little sigh, like the air is leaking out of them. They live in a world painted in 50 shades of beige, where the loudest sound is the hum of the refrigerator, and excitement is finding a coupon for their favorite brand of fabric softener. My home isn't a home, it's a waiting room for death. That's why I'm here, phone in hand, streaming live to the thousands of followers who get it, who understand that life isn't about paying bills and mowing the lawn, it's about chasing the euphoria. Tonight is different. We're at an abandoned warehouse miles from anywhere, a place the flyers just called the Terminus. The promoter promised a party that would go down in history, one that would never stop. "Hey, my beautiful creatures!" I say to my phone, a manic grin plastered on my face. "We are live from the literal end of the world, and it is going off. Can I get some fire in the chat for this vibe?" My goal is to hit 10,000 live viewers tonight, to document the undocumentable, to become a legend myself. I'm here to find that perfect, endless high, the one that finally burns away everything else. Because when you're dancing, when the music is so loud it replaces your thoughts, you can't hear the silence creeping in from the edges. And for me, the silence is the most terrifying thing in the world. I'm not an idiot. I know what people say about girls like me, that I'm shallow, that I'm running from something, and yeah, okay, I am. But it's not what you think. I'm not running from a broken home or some big dramatic tragedy. I'm running from nothing. Literally, the crushing, suffocating, absolute nothingness of my life outside these walls. The real horror isn't a monster under the bed. It's being alone with your own thoughts in a quiet room. The silence gives them space to grow. The whispers that tell you you're worthless, that you have no identity beyond the party, that everyone will eventually leave you because you're just empty. The music is my armor. The dancing is my weapon. It's a full sensory assault against the void inside me. That's why this party, the party that never ends, feels like an answer to a prayer. But a dark thought, a cold sliver of fear snakes into my mind even as the bass pounds against my ribs. What if the thing you used to escape becomes the cage? My biggest fear isn't the party ending. It's the bad trip you can't come down from. It's the terror that the doors might lock, the music might warp into something monstrous, and this sanctuary might become a tomb where the beat just goes on and on and on, trapping us in a nightmare of endless, distorted euphoria. What if the party really, truly never ends?
The first 10 hours were exactly what I dreamed of, pure, uncut bliss. The room was a perfect 5x5 meter cube of mirrors, the floor a pulsing grid of light, and the speakers were everywhere, pumping a beat that felt like it was syncing with my own heart. Me, my best friend Riley, and her boyfriend Ben, we were gods. The livestream chat on the wall-mounted screen scrolled with fire emojis and praise. We were legends in the making, and the euphoria was a tidal wave. Then, somewhere around hour 12, I noticed it. This song. It was a banger for sure. A hardstyle track with a drop so dirty it made your teeth ache. But it had just played maybe 20 minutes ago. I shrugged it off. The DJ was probably just feeling the vibe. But then it played again. And again. The exact same synth buildup, the same distorted vocal sample, the same earth-shattering drop. For a solid hour. The pleasure started to feel recycled. The beat that had felt like a heartbeat now felt like a metronome, counting down to something I didn't understand. Is it me or is this DJ lazy AF? I shouted to Riley over the music, trying to make a joke of it. She just gave me a tired, confused shrug. The endless energy of the first few hours was starting to fray at the edges. By hour 16, the Euphoria was wearing thin, replaced with a gritty, metallic exhaustion. I stumbled away from the dance floor, my ears ringing with that same relentless track. The mirrored walls reflected 1,000 tired, sweaty versions of me. I just needed to splash some water on my face to reset. I leaned over a small basin in the corner, the water shockingly cold against my skin. When I looked back up at my reflection, I froze. It wasn't the me in the first mirror that was wrong. It was the one behind her, and the one behind her. Deep in the infinite tunnel of my own reflections, maybe 20 back, one of them wasn't leaning over the basin. She was standing perfectly still, her head tilted at an unnatural angle, looking right at me. A smile stretched her face, a grotesque, impossibly wide grin that was all teeth, splitting the face from ear to ear. It wasn't my smile. It was the smile of a predator. I blinked, my heart hammering against my ribs, and she was gone. All the reflections were me again, staring back with my own wide, terrified eyes. Just a trick of the light? A hallucination? It had to be. Just my brain short-circuiting from the fatigue and the nonstop noise.
I tried to shake it off, telling myself it was nothing. I was just tired, tripping a little from the exhaustion. But the image of that smile was burned into my mind. I needed to ground myself, so I went to find Riley and Ben. They were huddled in a corner, arguing, their words swallowed by the beat. Ben's face was pale and slick with sweat, his eyes darting around nervously. "It's too much," he was saying, his voice barely audible over the music. "The same song. It's been hours. We need a break." That's when the real fear hit me. We hadn't seen a door in hours. The entrance we'd used, a heavy seal fire door, was just another seamless mirrored panel now. "Let's just get some air," I said, trying to sound casual, trying to pretend this was my idea. I walked to the wall where I remembered coming in and pushed. Nothing. It was like pushing against solid rock. Panic, cold and sharp, shot through me. I pushed harder, my shoulder digging into the cold surface. It didn't move. It wasn't a door. Not anymore. That's when my eyes drifted upwards, past the scrolling chat on the wall-mounted screen, to the single unblinking red light of the live stream camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling. It felt like it was staring right through me, a cold, clinical eye. At that exact moment, the chat on the screen changed. The fire emojis and praise were gone. The usual stream of donations had stopped. Now the anonymous comments felt like whispers in a tomb. "She's figured it out. Took her long enough. The rats are finally testing the cage. LOL, did they really think the door would still be there?" Now the real show begins. The music swelled, the same beat, the same drop, but it wasn't euphoric anymore. It was mocking. The room wasn't a party, it was an arena, and we were the entertainment. And it had no exit.
There is no day or night in the cube. There was only the beat. By what must have been the third day, time had dissolved into a thick, syrupy poison. We weren't people anymore. We were just raw nerves, twitching to a rhythm that had long ago stopped being music and was now just pressure. A physical force pushing on my skull, vibrating in my bones, churning the acid in my empty stomach. The floor was a slick, treacherous film of spilled energy drinks, sweat, and vomit. The air, thick and hot, reeked of sickness and despair. We had stopped talking. What was there to say? Ben was the worst. He'd spent hours staring into one of the mirrored corners, talking to reflections that only he could see. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, the pupils tiny black dots in a sea of red. Riley just sobbed quietly, her body still swaying to the music, a horrible, broken puppet on a string. I just kept moving. Moving was all I had left. I was the party girl. I could outlast anyone. Stop moving and you die. The livestream chat had become our tormentor. They'd gotten bored with our misery, so they started paying. A donation with flash on the screen, followed by a new torture. User XO98 donated $50. Kill the lights! The strobes would die, plunging us into a disorienting, pitch-black nightmare, where the only thing that existed was the crushing bass. User Anani66 donated $100. Max volume! The sound would spike, a physical blow that made my teeth ache and my ears bleed. We'd collapse, hands over our heads, but there was no escape. The sound was inside us. We tried to escape, of course. We'd beaten our fists against the mirrored walls until our knuckles were raw and bloody. The chat just laughed. The cage was absolute. Then came the final donation. It was huge, enough to take up the whole screen. A wall of text that made my exhausted brain swim. But I could read the words at the bottom. They were lit up in bright predatory red. New objective. Last person dancing wins $100,000. For a full minute, nothing happened. $100,000. It was a meaningless number. What was money in here? But it wasn't about the money. It was the word. Wins. You could win this. This hell had a finish line, and only one person could cross it. I saw the change in Ben's eyes first. The vacant madness was replaced by a flicker of sharp, calculating poison. He looked at Riley, his girlfriend. He looked at her not with love, but with assessment, an obstacle. He lunged. It was ugly, awkward. He shoved her hard, and she stumbled, falling to the floor with a wet smack. She scrambled back up, her face a mask of shocked betrayal. "Ben!" she shrieked. Then she came at me. Maybe she thought I was an easier target. She grabbed my hair, pulling me off balance. Something snapped inside me. The fear, the exhaustion, the humiliation, it all boiled over into a white-hot rage. I wasn't prey. I was the one who was supposed to win. I twisted, breaking her grip, and shoved her away from me, harder than I meant to. She stumbled backward, her arms flailing, and collided with Ben, who was coming up behind her. They went down together in a tangle of limbs. I didn't wait. I didn't think. I just acted. I kicked. My target was Ben's legs. My foot connected with his knee, and I heard a sickening, wet pop. A sound somehow audible even over the bass. He screamed, a high,
thin sound of pure agony. Riley was trying to crawl away. Crying. She wasn't dancing, she was out. But Ben was still trying to get up, propped on his elbows, his face a canvas of pain and psychotic fury. He was still in the game. He was still moving. I walked over to him. I looked down at the boy I'd laughed with just days ago. I saw his reflection in the mirror beside me, and the one behind that. 1,000 versions of me, all watching, their faces blank. The one with the grotesque smile was back, and this time, I knew it was me. I raised my foot and brought my heel down on the back of his head, once, twice. There was no sound over the music, just a dull, heavy impact that I felt all the way up my leg. He stopped moving. He just lay there, a broken thing on a dirty floor. I had won.
I stood there, my chest heaving, legs trembling. I was the only one standing, the only one dancing. I swayed, a grotesque victory shuffle, my eyes fixed on the two bodies on the floor. The chat was a blur of text I didn't want to read. I just kept moving, because that's what the winner did. I danced for another minute, or maybe it was an hour. Then it happened. The thing I had secretly been terrified of my entire life. The music stopped. The silence was a physical blow. It was louder than any bass drop, more violent than any scream. It crashed into me, a tidal wave of absolute nothing. My ears rang with the high-pitched whine. I could hear my own ragged, sobbing breaths. I could hear the wet, sticky sound as I shifted my feet on the floor. I could hear the frantic, rabbit-fast thumping of my own heart. The silence I had dedicated my life to outrunning had finally caught me, and it was worse than I could have ever imagined. A loud click echoed in the vast, empty quiet. I looked up. One of the mirrored panels, the one we'd beaten against until our hands bled, was now slightly ajar. A thin black line in a world of silver. The door. It was open. I stumbled toward it and stepped out. I was in the warehouse. It was huge, dark, and silent. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light coming from the open door of the cube behind me. A figure was waiting for me. They wore a simple black jumpsuit and a blank white, expressionless mask. They didn't speak. They just held out a tablet. My hands shook as I took it. On the screen was a banking app, a transfer confirmation, a balance of $100,000. Underneath it, a single line of text. Congratulations, you have won the party that never ends. I looked from the tablet to the masked figure and back to the open door of the cube. I could see Riley and Ben inside, unmoving. They hadn't come to get them. They were just part of the set. The figure turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows. I was alone. Truly, utterly alone. With my prize, with the silence, with the ghosts of what I had done. Their faces reflected in the dark screen of the tablet. I had chased the ultimate party, the endless euphoria, so I would never have to be alone with my own thoughts. And I'd gotten my wish. The bad trip would never end. The sanctuary had become the tomb. Because now, the silence wasn't empty anymore.
It was full of the pops and wet smacks and silent screams from inside that room. And I knew, standing there in the cold, dusty dark, that I would never, ever be able to drown them out.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. Like and subscribe for more nightmares. Your support keeps the darkness from consuming this channel, so we can face the next terrifying story together. Don't be left in the dark.